He stood perfectly still, the rain pooling and then falling over the brim of his hat. He looked like a water fountain that had been dumped in the abandoned parking lot. He stared at nothing and saw everything. It was so clear, so agonizingly clear. She whirled around the kitchen, dancing with pots and pans and creating an exquisite array of aromas. The day had been long and hard, but she was looking forward to the night ahead. It was her chance to relax, to enjoy herself, something she couldn't remember doing for a long time. The doorbell rang, and she practically ran to answer it in her excitement. The man standing there in his long trench coat was soaking wet, but neither of them cared. They embraced, kissed, lingered, and laughed. It was a storybook romance. She in her lacy camisole and flared floral skirt, and he with his heavy, square jaw and dark locks. Inside the house, they sat down to candles and 3 courses of the most delicious homemade foods he'd ever eaten. She grew up in a culinary family and learned their secret ways with sugar and spices. It was beautiful, like art, like her. He loved the way the candlelight made her skin glow and shine. She was marvelous, and he told her so. Her skin got brighter as she smiled and averted her eyes. He could stand it no longer. He stood and approached her, slid his hand in hers, pulled it to his face, caressing it with his lips. He gently pulled her up and next to him, holding her tightly, letting her feel him. She gasped and giggled with delighted surprise, then pulled his face to hers with tender excitement. Never breaking the kiss, he reached down and lifted her into his arms. She threw back her head with a delighted laugh as he carried her up the stairs and laid her in the soft, velvety sheets. Hours later, he woke to a blackened room. He was very cold, so he rolled over, further under the blankets, and felt for her, wanting her close. Emptiness. Just blankets, empty blankets, was all he found. She must be in the bathroom. He rolled over and found the door open, the room empty and dark. Downstairs, maybe, in the kitchen. He got up, drew on his boxers, and jogged down the stairs. More darkness, more emptiness. Where was she? Glory? Nothing. Glory! Still nothing. Glory! Glory! Gloria! He ran back upstairs, throwing the light switch and dragging his clothes on. Then he noticed it. The window was open. That's why he had been so cold. And a letter, pinned to the drapes, was a letter. If you don't pay, she will. On the back was an address, 1507 Murchison Street. His bank? Below that were 2 numbers. 3 o'clock, that must mean 3 o'clock tomorrow evening, and $25,000. $25,000? How would he ever get that much? Unless... was he supposed to rob the bank? No, he couldn't, shouldn't, wouldn't. But Gloria... He fell under the weight of his sobs. What was going to happen to her, to them both? He awoke to an assault of sunlight. The tears he had shed for hours that night until he finally passed out from sheer exhaustion were dried to his face. His body ached, his mind swam, he looked terrible, but there was no time to waste. He knew what he had to do. Of course, he couldn't rob the bank. That would be ludicrous. There was another way. He could mortgage his house. There had to be at least $50,000 there alone. More than enough. Or he would take out a loan. He would find a way for Gloria, his morning glory. Another tear escaped him. He hadn't thought he had any more. No time to waste. He pulled himself together and headed downstairs, practically running to his car. Come on, come on! It was a cold November morning, freezing up the engine. There, finally, it kicked on. He drove fast, very fast. He was lucky there weren't many cars on the road, and no police officers either. He arrived at the bank before the doors were open, 7:45. The bank didn't open until 8 o'clock. He took to pacing. Come on, come on. People who passed him stared. Fuck 'em. Come on, open the damn door. He knocked, saw a lady at the counter, look from him to the clock. He slammed his fist hard and the lady jumped. She scowled at him. Fuck. Bitch. He paced again. 5 minutes left. He bit his nails, pulled his hair, making himself look even more a mess. 7:59. Come on, come on, come on! Finally, a fat man in a tight brown suit came out a door at the back, jingling keys. Hurry up, fat ass! Walk faster! Clip, clip, clip. His shoes tapped across the floor. Finally, he slid the key in, turned, click, it was open. The fat man held open the door. Who do I speak to about a loan or a mortgage? Excuse me? The man looked bewildered at the abruptness of the question. Who do I speak to about a loan or a mortgage? The man said more loudly. The bitch behind the counter was watching and raising her eyebrows. She could suck it. Why, me? The fat man spoke with an entertained smile. Come to my office. He turned and walked back toward the door at the back. In his office, he offered the man one of the 2 tiny lime green chairs, while he walked behind his massive mahogany desk and sat in an overstuffed black leather chair that was practically a recliner. A fire crackled in the small hearth to the side, making him suddenly very hot. The nameplate in front of him read Guthrie Perman. So, what's your name, son? Guthrie smiled, showing off thin lips and tiny white teeth. Gabriel, the man said as he slipped out of his coat and pulled at his shirt. Gabriel, that's a fine name, son. So, Gabriel, why do you need a loan or a mortgage? I need $25,000 today. Today? Well, son, I don't think I can help you there. I can approve you today, but it's going to take some time for the proper paperwork to be processed and all, and, well, I think you're looking at having the money in about 5 business days. 5 But I need this money by 3 o'clock today. Well, now, son, just calm down there. I just told you. It doesn't happen that fast. Where are you going? You're no help to me. Gabriel was out of the office now, and the bank was already filling up. He blew through the crowd, bumping into a few people, ignoring their cries. He didn't care. His mind was spinning, reeling. He was thinking too fast and not at all. It made him sick. He turned into an alley and leaned over, retching, sputtering. When he was finished, he knew there was only one thing left to do. He stood up, wiping his mouth, and marched across the street. He scanned the shelves, searching. There, a black ski mask. How much? He barked at the clerk, startling the young boy. I don't know, man. It says it on the tag. $15. He threw a 20 on the counter and stormed out. Wait, your change. But he was already gone. Back across the street, he stared at the bank as he got in his car and drove home. 3 o'clock. I have until 3 o'clock. I need to prepare. A gun, my dad's old rifle. At home, he tore through his garage, throwing boxes and bags, tearing at the contents of the shelves until he found it. his dad's old gun, the old man's most prized possession. Gabriel had never shared his father's passion, but now he saw the gun for what it was worth, a tool, a means to an end. He didn't really want to, but he loaded it anyway, just in case. Then he ran upstairs and showered. He needed the time to think, regroup, relax. He was shaking. He needed to calm down. He let the water run over his face. He thought about what lay ahead, what he had to do. He planned his moves, laid out a course of action. When he got out of the shower, he picked out his most unidentifiable clothes. Plain black pants, a black turtleneck shirt, and black shoes. He carefully slipped them on and grabbed a pair of black gloves, the ski mask, and the gun, and threw them into a big black tote bag. It was 11, too early. He paced around his room, down the stairs, through the living room, and then back again, all the time going over and over and over the plans he made. 12. He couldn't wait any longer. He grabbed the bag and headed to his car. His heart was pounding, beating, not in his chest, but at it like a jackhammer. He drove slow, taking detours, wasting time. His plans had become a mantra in his head, playing the lead, while wilder, more erratic thoughts burst in and out. What if it's too late? What if they killed her? What if she's hurt? What if I don't get the money? What if I fail? What if I die? Will they kill her? No, I won't fail. He found himself pulling up to the bank. 12:45. It was too busy, too many people on their lunch break. He changed course and parked at the diner across the street. Coffee. He dismissed the waitress before she could ask what he wanted. Would you like cream or sugar, sir? She asked in her sweetest, highest voice, giving him a big, flashy smile. She was young, with too much makeup. Just coffee. He was gruff, rude. She left him and bounced back in an instant, setting the cup down and pouring. Just coffee, she said, and smiled a falsely sweet smile. He glanced out the window, tried not to stare. Why were there so many people? Go back to work, or don't you have jobs? He stared at his watch, following the second hand around the dial. Ugh! He looked out across the street again. Someone walked out, but someone else walked in. Ugh! Up at the clock on the wall, 1:05, tapping his fingers across the table. Dump, dump, dump. He picked up his coffee, put it back down again, looked out the window at his clock, tapping his fingers faster. Ba-dump, 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 ba-dump. Finally, 1:15. Not too many people now, just one or two. He threw some bills on the table and left. He pulled his car around the block and parked at the back of the bank. It must be done. He pulled on the gloves. I have to. He pulled on the mask. Just do it. The bag was in his hands. He got out and walked to the side door, pulled it open. His heart was fast again, the blood swooshing past his ears. He walked to the center of the floor. Everyone was staring. He pulled the bag open and grabbed the gun. As the bag fell to the floor, he heard screams. Shut up! Tellers, hands on the counter, everybody else, down! The door at the back opened. The fat man walked out. Guthrie, you, on the floor! The man whimpered, fell to his knees, his hands up. Listen up! I need $25,000 in this bag. Now! He kicked the bag in front of him. You, open the vault! He spoke to Guthrie, and the man winced. He stood up shakily, got out his keys, and walked to a steel door opposite the teller's counter. It was a small town, a small bank, not heavily protected. The man realized this bank had never been robbed before. This was good. This was his advantage. Guthrie had the vault open and was stepping back now. "Get the money. 25,000 big bills. Now." Guthrie jumped, his fat belly jumping with him, but did what he was told. It took him 2 trips to carry all the money to the bag, and on his last trip, while he was dumping the folds, he looked up into the man's eyes and said, "Gabriel, please, it's not worth it." Gabriel didn't know what to do. For a split second, his heart stopped and he was paralyzed, rooted to the spot. Then he was angry. This stupid fat ass would ruin everything. "Shut up! Back against the wall! Nobody move!" He grabbed the bag and headed to the door, watching everyone, whipping around, making sure no one played a hero like he was. Back in his car, he took off down a back street, turned onto an old deserted road. He drove and drove. Tearing off the mask, he rubbed his face and gasped for air. Breathe, breathe. He was panicking. He had the money. Now what? He had no clue what to do with it. Bzz, 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 bzz. He yelped and grabbed his pants leg. Oh, God, it was just his phone. He glanced at the screen, then stared. Gloria? Hello? Hello? A loud crackling came through from the other end, then a distorted voice, hard to hear. "Drop it at the park after dark, in the parking lot, then leave." Click. The crackling stopped. The line went dead. "Gloria! Gloria! I want to speak to Gloria!" He screamed, sobbed through the phone. He couldn't see and had to pull over to the side of the road. He sat there, shaking, sweating, sobbing. When he pulled himself together enough to drive again, he found a side road into the woods and parked there, off the road, out of sight. He leaned back and gave way to the tears. His life was over, and Gloria's might be as well. Once again, his tears subsided into sleep. "Oh, Gloria!" He bolted up, smacking his face against the window of his car. "Ah!" He screamed in pain as a large bump began to form on his forehead. He blinked, trying to clear his blurry vision. It was dark, almost dusk. His watch read 7:45. He had to get to the park now. He turned the key, roaring his car into life. Spinning his tires, he wheeled back onto the road and off towards the setting sun, racing it. He skirted around the edges of town, avoiding areas the cops might be watching. He pulled into Sunny Park just as the sun sank below the horizon. He heard a rumble of thunder and saw clouds gathering above. He drove to the center of the lot and opened his door, dropping the bag onto the pavement just as drops of water fell from the sky. Then he turned and left, parking his car off the road some distance away. The voice on the phone said to leave, but he had no intention of listening. It was a cold rain, so he dug around to find his hat and coat from the night before. He threw them on and snuck back towards the park, skulking in the shadows in case the voice was watching. Back in the park, he hid in the trees and bushes and watched the bag. It didn't take long. A car pulled in from the other direction and stopped when its lights hit the bag. The door opened and an umbrella popped out. Then followed 2 clicks and a figure. Gabriel struggled to see. It was so dark. Walk into the light. Just a little further. When the figure emerged into the light of headlamps, through all the darkness and heavy rain, Gabriel saw too much. He gasped as Gloria walked calmly towards the bag and picked it up. "Gloria!" Gabriel jumped out of the bushes and cried out, "Gloria!" The woman turned, saw him coming at her, and ran back to the car. She was in it and gone before he could get halfway to her. He stood there, in the rain, not wanting to believe. Stood there, rooted to the spot, like so many statues in the park. He never snapped out of his stupor, not even when the cops, about 10 in 5 cars, came screeching into the parking lot, cuffed him, and hauled him off to the station. That was 5 years ago. At the trial, the evidence stacked against him. Gloria testified that the night he came over, she slipped out to pick up some food for breakfast at the Walmart down the street. She left him a note, which was marked Evidence Exhibit A, stating this and that she would be back soon. She then went on to say that she thought he had left to get ready for work by the time she got back, since she had been held up after running out of gas. When she didn't hear from him, she called around 2 o'clock to see if he was okay. The line was bad, and she couldn't hear anything, so she hung up. She later heard the rumors of what he had done and went out looking for him that night, but never found him. It was a perfect story. And with the other witnesses, Mr. Guthrie, the waitress from the diner, several others, it was airtight. The fact that the money was missing didn't bother anyone because the bag had been found zipper open in the river, a few bills scattered along the bank. This was enough for everyone to believe that he had simply gotten scared and thrown the money away. Now people were whispering, most saying he had suffered from a psychotic break. When he testified his side of the story, the whispers got louder. He was sentenced to spend his life, if that's how long it took, in the psychiatric ward 2 towns over until the doctors declared him safe and sound. A few months after the trial, he got word that Gloria, stricken with grief and unable to handle the gossip and attention from the locals, picked up and moved away after selling her house for a fortune. Dennis. The man woke to a bitter, cold room. He rolled over, searching the bed. Lori? A small note was pinned to the drapes.